Marina Kartanova is our correspondent who joins us from Moscow to give us the latest on that. And Marcus Papadopoulos is a historian, journalist, and author who joins us from London for an analysis. Marina, at this point, tell us more about who has been sanctioned by Russia and if there has been any response by the EU to that at this point.
Well, relations between the EU and Russia are at their lowest point after the Cold War, said the EU ambassador to Moscow. And what is missing is the quote, "That is the most important and honest thing thanks to the efforts of Brussels." So the European Parliament adopted on Thursday, April 29, a resolution calling for sanctions against the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline project, as well as disconnecting Russia from the international SWIFT interbank payment system in the event of an aggravation to the situation in Ukraine. They are blaming Russia non-stop. So Moscow said that the EU would have to pay for oil in cash in suitcases if Russia was disconnected from SWIFT system. So Russia closed the entry to the country for 8 citizens of the EU member states and representatives of the official structures of the European Union. These measures in response to the restrictive measures imposed on March the 2nd and 22nd March by the EU Council against 6 Russian citizens. I will not list these officials and persons. There are many of them, so they're top EU officials. And the Russian foreign minister stressed that the continuation of the EU's policy of illegitimate unilateral restrictive measures against Russian citizens and organizations is contrary to the UN Charter and the fundamental norms of international law, and accompanied by anti-Russian hysteria deliberately dispersed in the Western media, not supported by evidence. So all Russian proposals to resolve any problematic issues arising between Russia and the EU in a direct professional dialogue are consistently ignored or rejected. So the minister said that Russia's position that such actions of the European Union leave no doubt that their true goal is to restrain the development of Russia at any cost, to impose its one-sided concept of rules-based world order that undermines international law, and to throw an open challenge to the independence of Russian foreign and domestic policy. So this is being done openly and deliberately, as the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs points out. And of course, the knowledge and encouragement of the United States, who do not hide their interest in returning Europe into an arena of acute geopolitical confrontation. So since 2014, Kyiv has been conducting a military operation against the residents of Donbass, who refused to recognize the results of the coup and the new government in Ukraine. And at the same time, the Ukrainian authorities blame Russia for the current situation. Moscow has repeatedly noted that it is not the party of the internal Ukrainian conflict. So the West has recently expressed concern, and the West expresses its concerns regularly about the intensification of aggressive actions by Russia against Ukraine. In particular, Moscow has been criticized for holding recent military exercises near the borders. So the Kremlin responded by saying that Russia is moving troops within its own territory and its own discretion. This does not threaten anyone and should not bother anyone. So at the same time, Moscow notes that growing military activity of NATO along the western and southern borders, that the alliance countries regularly conduct maneuvers and simulate a Russian attack. Earlier, Poland, at such large exercises, suffered a crushing defeat from the conditional enemy from the east. So the Russian army is 80%, sorry, a little bit more, is 80% defensive. Many strategists agree with this. So stop fanning war hysteria while America is more likely to attack EU if one day the EU will refuse to follow in it any war or refuse to host its military bases. So at the moment, the United States is simultaneously bombing 6 different countries, surpassing the size of the military budget of the next 10 countries, and 7 of them are allies of America. And nevertheless, Russia is still the main problem.
Right. So Marcus Papadopoulos, taking a look at this situation, I'm going to use our correspondent's words, anti-Russia hysteria. Why does the U.S. and the EU in turn feel like it's justified?
Well, the latest development in relations between the European Union and Russia is indicative of the overall state of relations between the West and Russia, which with the exception of the years 1962 and 1983, more than meet the tenseness which plagued relations between the West and Russia during the Cold War. Now, turning specifically to Russia's measures, which it has adopted against certain EU officials, these measures are in response. They are countermeasures to the hostile actions which the EU has employed against Russia in the last 7 years. Hostile actions which include economic sanctions and indeed sanctions on senior Russian officials. Therefore, Russia, as an independent sovereign country, which is entitled to national security, which is entitled to self-respect, to dignity, has every right, including legal and moral, to respond to the hostile moves of Brussels. And I would say as well to the EU's leaders that the deterioration in relations between the EU and Russia is not the fault of the Kremlin. No, it is the fault of the EU, because the EU in February of 2014, along with the Americans and the British, helped to orchestrate a coup in Ukraine against the democratically elected Ukrainian president, Viktor Yanukovych. That began the terrible spiraling out of control that we see in relations between the EU and Russia today. And also, I would say to the EU's leaders that the counterproductive measures that the EU has adopted against Russia since 2014 is not in the interests of ordinary EU citizens. It is not in the interests of EU businesses, because ordinary EU citizens and businesses across the European Union have suffered tremendously because of the hostile moves of the EU, because they are no longer, for example, able to trade and invest in Russia as they once were previous to 2014. And there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the United States of America, which exerts great influence in the decision-making process of the European Union, has encouraged the EU's leaders to adopt these aggressive measures against Russia. And if the EU, as it does, purports to be an independent political and economic bloc in the world, then it really should take a step back and rescind those aggressive measures against Russia, because it's not Russia who is suffering from the EU's aggressive actions. It is the EU, specifically EU citizens, who are suffering.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We do appreciate it. That's Marcus Papadopoulos talking there, historian, journalist, and author from London, and also Marina Kurtsunova, our correspondent from Moscow. Thank you so much. And that does it for the end of this news review.